Hello everybody and welcome to Travel Days 2020 presented by the Italian National Tourist Board. I'm Huntley Mitchell, editor of Travel Weekly, and before we kick off proceedings, I want to let you know about a few house rules. You should be able to see the chat function on the right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to use this to communicate with your fellow attendees during each session. However, our moderator will boot anyone out who uses it inappropriately. So one strike and you're out. If you do decide to share anything Travel Days related on social media, make sure you include the hashtags Travel Days and Travel Days 2020. We'll be sharing a simple feedback poll at the end of the session, so please let us know what you think before you leave. Now, I'd like to introduce our speaker for this session. He's very well known in the cruise industry and the travel industry as a whole. He's currently the global chair of the Cruise Lines Industry Association. His name is Adam Goldstein, and we've got him all the way over from the US. Hello, Adam. Welcome, and thank you for being a part of Travel Days 2020.
Hi, Huntley. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm sorry I'm not actually in Australia, which I love to visit, but right now that's a little difficult.
Yeah, no, we're very fortunate to have you. Look, I won't waste any time. There's lots to talk about from a cruise perspective, so I'll just dive straight in with the questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so I think the best place to start is to just give our attendees a bit of a global perspective on how the cruise industry has responded to COVID-19 since it broke out. What's been the worldwide approach and what measures have been put in place as the pandemic has developed?
So, like many sectors of travel, we've had an extraordinary experience. It began in earnest in mid-March when we voluntarily suspended global operations of the sector, and we remain not entirely, but almost entirely shut down today. In those 7 months, we have consulted with a huge variety of experts in public health and medicine, epidemiology, infectious disease, and so forth, to come up with a set of public health protocols that are responsive to the challenge that the virus presents to all of us. And this, and I'm sure we'll talk about different aspects of this, we've now been able to resume a certain amount, limited amount of cruising in Europe and in Southeast Asia. And we obviously look forward to expanding on that, but it's very heartening that we've been able to start and that we've been able to keep our customers safe in the cruises that have been occurring.
Okay, and what kind of expertise have cruise lines drawn from, I guess, CLIA and from each other in terms of dealing with this pandemic?
So two kinds of expertise. One is that those experts that the cruise companies and the association ourselves have engaged through panels and one-on-one relationships who have advised us across this whole array of aspects of this remarkable and difficult virus. The second is the relationship that we've had with the health authorities in different parts of the world. So, for example, in Europe, in order to resume any type of cruising in the Mediterranean, for example, we not only worked with the health authorities of the member states like Italy, France, Spain, Germany, Great Britain, but we also worked at the European Union level. So EU Healthy Gateways, which is a program of experts that's based in Greece, lent their expertise, and the European Maritime Safety Agency did likewise. And so the industry and those two bodies and the member states, we all sort of triangulated to a result that made us feel confident that we could adopt a multi-layered approach to safety on board and in the ports, and implement effective and safe cruises. And that's what's been happening for about 2 months now on a very, very limited basis. In the United States, it would be the Centers for Disease Control and in Brazil it would be Anvisa, and so on around the world.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, the cruise industry's efforts here have led to initial resumptions in certain parts of the world, like you're saying in Europe and other regions. What has been the experience of these early sailings?
So the sailings, of course, are not the same as they were before. First of all, the occupancies have been very significantly less than the normal occupancies on board cruise ships pre-pandemic. The social distancing, the approach to sanitization and hygiene, the requirements for mask wearing, these are clearly differences from before. The great thing about it, in terms of everything I've heard from the operators, is the guests are very, very happy to be there. They wanted to be on the water. They wanted to have cruise vacations, and they've had a great spirit and attitude towards the modifications that have occurred, which they know are for their safety and the safety of their fellow guests and the crew and the destinations that the ships are visiting. So it's gone well, and we continue to learn about this virus every day, week, and month, and we'll continue to evolve our protocols in order to try to maximize health and safety.
In terms of those protocols you were talking about just before, can you just go into a bit more detail about the controls and the limits and what have you that are in place at the moment, and what's working and what's not working?
Well, I'm fortunate to be able to say that I think all aspects have been working well to this point, but as you asked, to go into a little bit more detail. So there's sort of 4 areas that must be addressed. One of them is everything leading up to embarkation. One is what is happening on board. One is what is happening when the ship visits a destination. And the last one is when there is a case of the virus, or likely to be the virus, that it is handled exceptionally well. So coming back to the beginning, the first and primary goal is to not board people who are infected with the virus. And as a result, the cruise industry is, I believe, the first sector of travel and tourism to adopt a global requirement through the association, through CLIA, that 100% of guests and crew will be tested and will produce a negative test result prior to embarkation on board a cruise ship. So that's where the prevention efforts begin. But they are multi-layered in essence. And so when people come on board, they are expected to wear masks. They are expected to physically distance where possible. They are expected to adhere to very strict hygienic and sanitization practices. The ships have also heightened their already high levels of sanitization, sometimes with new technologies. The ships, in many cases, are addressing or strengthening their ventilation capabilities, even though they were already at a high standard to begin with. When the ships go into, and I should also say that the medical facilities on board, which are already in a strong posture, adherent to the American College of Emergency Physicians standards for cruise ships, are being augmented in terms of the numbers of staff and the capabilities of the equipment and the rooms where people would stay if necessary. There's a lot of work being done in terms of how shore excursions would occur. Actually, in the beginning of the restart process, the only excursions that will be permitted will be those that are organized by the cruise provider, the cruise line, so that we have a complete control over the whereabouts of the guests at the destination. And in the event of an incident or somebody being reported as having or confirmed as having the virus, then we will have arrangements in place, including with the destinations, for the care and logistics of handling anybody who's affected and tracing their close contacts and so forth. So that's the gist of it. There's much more in detail, but that's the overview of where we're at, and we think it's a very strong public health profile.
Okay, and just on the testing, how fast are the tests in terms of, well, from the beginning of getting tested to getting that result, so that the passengers can cruise safely?
So in the core elements, as we say, that we've adopted on a global basis, all we specify is that there is a test and a negative result. And the reason is, well, there's really two reasons. First of all, the difference in the types of tests that are available in different parts of the world vary. So what you could accomplish in Australia if you need to be tested might be different in Italy, might be different in the United States, might be different in Mexico. So we need to have the flexibility there to allow people to get tested and produce a negative result in a way that works for where they are. And the second thing is that everybody's learning about the tests, and the evolution of the tests and the availability of test equipment is constantly changing for the better, fortunately. And so if we say a certain way that it has to be this way today, well, there might be a much better way in a week from now. So we've simply said you must be tested, you must produce a negative result to get on board.
Okay. Do you see that rapid testing, obviously a lot of airlines are starting to trial this type of testing at the moment. Do you see rapid style testing becoming commonplace in the cruise industry as well?
It is possible. It is possible that there could be rapid testing that's backed up by PCR testing when a rapid test shows a positive result and so forth. So there's a lot of permutations that could occur. But again, the evolution of the testing is pretty rapid right now. So there's, obviously swabs in the nostril, then there's saliva tests and so on and so on. And so our guess is by a month from now, it'll be a different testing environment than it is today. And our protocols need to enable the operators to take best advantage of whatever's available. Not just the operators actually, but the customers as well.
Okay. Now, I wanted to chat about the current status in the US at the moment. It's obviously a market that the rest of the cruise industry looks to, being the largest one. Can you give us an update there?
Sure. So we have been working, as in the rest of the world, on a proposal or on protocols for months with the experts, as we were discussing earlier, whose advice we have sought. And about a few weeks ago now, we proposed to the United States government, including the Centers for Disease Control, how we propose to operate in and out of U.S. waters. I feel like it was generally well received. It was taken under advisement. The report out on the meeting with government was I would say, a favorable indication. But we don't have yet an actual response from the U.S. government as to the way forward. Fortunately, we have a 50-year history of positive relations with our regulators, and we hope to work through all the challenges that are out there. Again, knowing this is a difficult situation and the highest priority is to take care of the health of the guests and the crew. But we're looking forward to the response, and we're very hopeful to engage in what we think will happen in most parts of the world, a sequenced, phased in, well-controlled, staggered resumption. One thing I want to stress for everybody watching and listening is there's not going to be a day when all of a sudden dozens or hundreds of cruise ships snap back into action. It's simply not possible. Getting the crew back in place, training the crew on the new protocols, getting the ships to the home ports, obviously working with travel agents to motivate demand again. All of that is going to result in a sequenced resumption. And so we're preparing for that reality.
Okay, Good. A lot of our attendees, well, most of our attendees at Travel Days are based in Australia, and I'm sure we've got some tuning in from New Zealand as well. So I wanted to get a sense of what the status is in terms of the discussions CLIA is having with governments in Australia and New Zealand around cruising.
Sure. So again, first, I want to compliment the two countries who have, on a relative performance basis, done a very nice job of keeping down the prevalence of the virus. I mean, obviously, it's everywhere and it's impossible to keep out totally, but if you compare the performance down under to other places, it seems robust. We are and have been in conversations with the authorities in both countries for months behind the scenes. And we have kept them up to speed with developments in other parts of the world, especially our resumption of cruising in Europe. We had previously communicated to them the statement that was sort of indicative of our protocol development. But now that we have adopted the global core elements by all CLIA member lines quite recently, we, of course, are updating the authorities about that. That is inclusive of the 100% testing requirement. So we want to make sure they know the direction in which we're heading, the commitment that our lines have to keep customers healthy, the fact that we believe that this is doable in a multi-layered approach to prevention and management. And we're optimistic that over the course of time, we'll find a resolution that allows resumption, but it needs to work for everybody's benefit and to everybody's satisfaction, including the regulators.
Okay, and what form do you think is cruising likely to resume in this region?
That's an excellent question, how cruising could resume, and we've looked at a number of models in the Australia-New Zealand area, which I know a number of people watching will be familiar that there's discussion of things like intra-state cruising, where not only would a cruise ship not leave the country, it wouldn't even leave one of the states of the country. Or cruises could cruise to multiple states in a country but not leave the country. Or cruises could cruise within some type of defined corridor or bubble that everybody is confident about has a strong control over the virus in every area of the bubble. So these are all potential solutions to get cruising going again in Australia and New Zealand. We have an open mind in the cruise sector, and I know CLIA Australia has been vocal about that. We want to go down a path that works for everyone and keeps our guests and crew healthy and the citizens who live and work in the places that the ships would visit.
Just in terms of the economic impact of the cruise suspension, what is it looking like here? How devastating is it for this region, especially compared to other regions?
So the word is devastating. It's devastating in Australia and New Zealand. It's devastating around the world. It's not just cruising, it's the whole of travel and tourism. But to focus in on Australia and New Zealand, and normally Australia in a year would be a $5 billion economic impact of the cruise sector, and New Zealand in the range of $600 million. Our calculations are that even though Australia and New Zealand have been off season up until now, the economic loss is in the vicinity of $1.5 billion. That clearly will ramp up fast as we approach the December 17th date for the current ban on cruising in Australia. So thousands of jobs have been lost, according to our analysis. It's horrific for travel agents, suppliers, tour operators, and others. That's not different than in the United States. That's not different than in Europe. It's a common experience that we hope to fight our way through by supporting the whole cruise ecosystem to the best of our abilities down under and everywhere else.
Okay. And are there any indications? What's your best guess of when cruising might resume in this region?
It would be really pure speculation to say, although I would comment on this. The current date of December 17th can be taken in a couple of ways. if we don't know until December 16th what's going to happen to the December 17th date, then there's no way to prepare the ships or even the selling and marketing process for what will then happen. And you cannot snap a cruise ship back into service. So there would be many weeks of ramp up time to get the crew there and train them and prepare them for service. So what really matters, in addition to a specific date, is when is there enough certainty for the cruise operators to begin to prepare their ships to resume service. So while December 17th is the earliest possible date that could happen in Australia, it will take much longer than that if we don't know until then or even after then when the sailings could resume, even on a limited and well-controlled narrow basis.
Okay. And I guess everyone's pretty aware of this, but the cruise industry has, taken a fair bit of reputational damage throughout this pandemic. How is the industry continuing to address this? And how do you expect, I guess, the market to respond as well as cruising resumes and we get back to normalcy?
Well, the imperative during this pandemic time is that we keep our guests and crew and the people in the destinations healthy and safe. So the development of the right protocols and their implementation on an everyday basis for any ship that resumes sailing is paramount to not only taking care of the guests and crew who are there on the destinations that ship visits, but to inspire confidence in the travel agency community and the consumer community that cruising continues to be the best form of vacation. So this is sort of job number one. We clearly need to communicate what our expectations are throughout the booking process and until sailing, for not only what the protocols are for the benefit of the guests, but also what the expectations are of the guests to adhere to those protocols. In order for somebody to be on a cruise ship in the near future, you're going to have to essentially promise us that you will respect the protocols, not only for your own benefit, but for the benefit of your fellow guests. So these are the types of things and approaches that will, I believe, and I think the industry believes, inspire confidence. The indications are that the people who have cruised before, who have experienced the joys and have the memories of cruising, are extremely willing and enthusiastic to come back when that's possible. The challenge that we expect to be greater in nature, not insurmountable.
Adam, the travel agent community here in Australia is a big one, and I know for a fact that they very much love the cruise sector, and it's a big source of income for them and bookings. How is the industry and CLIA and its member lines continuing to support agents throughout this pandemic?
So there is no cruise industry without travel agents. Travel agents are effectively the sales force for the industry. And travel agents, travel partners, travel advisors book easily more than half of all cruises. The dialogue around the role of travel agents in cruises is at least 25 years old. And throughout that time, I believe that the cruise industry has demonstrated its fidelity to travel agents, and I believe travel agents have more than demonstrated their fidelity to cruise lines. So we're really grateful, and we expect travel agents to play a key role going forward. The customers want experiences. They want, they're investing a lot in a cruise, and they expect it to be one of their highlights of the year. And the role of the travel agent in getting that customer to the vacation environment and the cruise ship and the itinerary that is the one that's going to represent incredible value to them is a unique and compelling role that travel agents play for us. So that's true in Australia and New Zealand. It's true in North America. It's true in Europe. I suspect that will be true for a long time to come. And so I will say that in our advocacy for any type of economic relief through the pandemic period, we have tried to put the interests and the needs of the small and medium-sized businesses in our economic ecosystem forward. That's travel agents, that's tour operators, that's small suppliers of all kinds. And we'll continue to do that because travel agents have really been hard pressed by the disappearance of the revenue model that is the foundation of their business. And while it's tough for the cruise lines too, we have to make sure the travel agents are still there when we get through this.
Okay. And I guess this is one issue that a few agents have brought up in recent times, and I think going forward it is a bit of a worry for them, is suppliers undercutting them by going direct. Do you think that's a problem for agents in the cruise sector? And do you think there needs to be more done on the cruise side of things for agents to feel more valued, and I guess for customers to be incentivized to book with agents?
I would like to think that the cruise lines demonstrate on an everyday, every week basis the significance that travel agents have in our model, and that they're core to the model, and we expect them to remain core to the model. The cruise companies are simply not in a position to have the time or the reach to explain to all the people out there who have never cruised before why they should cruise, and sooner rather than later. And even for most experienced cruisers, they value the input and guidance that professional travel agents bring to the conversation. So that's our view, and I don't think it's changing.
Okay, very good. Look, before we finish up, I just wanted to chat to you about how the cruise industry is approaching sustainability. Obviously, it recently shared its report on its sustainability goals and how it's tracking there, and it's doing quite well. How is CLIA and the cruise industry committed to continuing to achieve the sustainability goals that they've laid out, and have they changed at all as a result of the pandemic?
The sustainability goals that the industry has have not at all changed as a result of the pandemic, other than to say that the accelerated retirement of some of the older ships in the industry will advance the sustainability characteristics of our sector, because the newest ships have the most advanced environmental capabilities. So on average, every time an older ship is retired and a newer ship comes in, our sustainability characteristics improve. So that is a feature of the pandemic that was, obviously, we did not anticipate that, we didn't plan for that, but that's what's happening. There are too many examples to talk about to even to summarize in this question and answer period. But to name a few, the cruise industry is the first sector of maritime of shipping to commit to the International Maritime Organization's goal for the year 2030 to be at least 40% more efficient in our use of energy than we were in 2008. So we have already publicly committed to meet or exceed that goal. We are, CLIA is one of, I think, 7 shipping associations that is proposing to the IMO a tremendous research fund looking for the kinds of breakthroughs in fuel source and clean fuel source that would allow the industry to meet or exceed the 2050 and beyond targets that IMO has established. We're looking at, if at all possible, the amassing of 500 million US dollars per year over 10 years, so $5 billion project to work together with scientists around the world to come up with breakthrough solutions to carbon emission challenges. The industry, through its new build program, which is in the vicinity of $25 billion US right now, is installing either LNG as a new and cleaner fuel source or exhaust gas cleaning systems on other ships, installing water treatment plants on virtually every new ship, installing shore power systems that would allow the ships to hook into the local electricity grid where that makes sense on approximately 2/3 of all ships under construction. So I just use those examples as some of the major commitments that cruises are making to taking care of the air above us, the water below us, and the destinations that we visit.
Okay, that sounds like some really good things are happening there. Adam, look, we could go on talking forever, I think, about cruising, but we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate all of your insights into the cruise industry, and I'm sure our attendees have too. I know whenever you talk, they listen. So thank you very much for agreeing to have a chat with us today.
You're very welcome, and I look forward to being back down under.
Excellent. And thanks also to all of you who tuned in today. We hope that you gained some useful knowledge and advice that you can apply to your own business recovery. Bye for now.